There's no point in paying the money till you're sure the use you're going to put the product to.
Hi guys, thanks for joining us. I'm here with Richard Johnson, the Managing Director of DCC Concepts. I've managed to pull him away from his busy schedule of playing trains to answer a few questions for us and for you, the gentle viewer at home. Richard, who are you? Why are we here? What's going on?
Well, basically, DCC Concepts was formed maybe 25 years ago.
When the world was still in black and white.
When the world was not quite in black and white. But what was happening was the start of the revolution of using LEDs in trains. And the first product ever, in fact, was an LED that looked correct as a locomotive lamp and didn't look of the wrong color when the lamp was turned off. We were frustrated that really there was either a blue-white or there was quite a good-looking light that looked nothing like a light when the light wasn't turned on.
Of course.
And that was almost our first ever product, was developing an LED to fix that problem, which we named Prototype White.
And that's where it all began.
That's where
LEDs.
It sort of began. The other side of it was massive frustration with the quality of customer service. I'm a hobbyist. I buy stuff. I used to be terrified of going into really good, well-stocked model railway parts shops because I'd come out with a little paper bag with 600 quid full of tiny parts. So I valued good customer service and good knowledge. And I just found that living as I was at that stage on the other side of the world, and dealing in either the United States or the United Kingdom or Europe for parts, generally the information wasn't good. The customer service was a bit average with one or two exceptions. And I just thought something should be done better to keep the hobby a pleasure rather than a chore.
So with the hobby in mind, when did you actually start railway modelling?
Now that's a very long story. My first ever train set was when I was 3 years old. It was a Hornby 00 Duchess of Athol with a couple of coaches, and it coincided with 3 years old, my first ever physical wound when I fell down the stairs with a piece of Hornby 003 rail track in my hand.
There you go, youngsters watching. Don't run with track in your hands.
And fell down the stairs, put the piece of track through my cheek, and therefore gave myself my first 3 stitches at 3 years old. But I could say then I was vaccinated by the hobby at the very beginning, and I'll never, ever stop modelling.
So what would you say then, since you've been doing this for quite a while then, that your favourite UK region is to model, and of course your favourite UK locomotive?
Okay, well, just 2 stories to that. One is, even though I was born in the UK, I grew up in New Zealand, so one of my great advantages is I saw lots of steam locos the size of Duchesses on 3'6" track. So while I've modelled in P4, I've modelled in EM, 00 actually doesn't look that wrong to me. I've always been drawn to the LMS, which is strange that I've never lived in the area of the LMS when it was the LMS.
No, but I suppose that's the good thing about railway modelling, isn't it? You can be inspired by an area you've never been to.
Yeah, and one thing catalyses another. I like the LMS and its structure as locomotives. I also visited UK many times, and I loved the settle in Carlisle, which was a natural extension of something that grew out of the Midland into the LMS and was a bit different. The viaduct behind me is a build of mine, so I do tend to commit to things pretty well.
It really does draw the attention of anyone that comes in here and takes a look at it. But I believe the curvature's not quite right, is it, on this?
No, when I laid it out originally, which took my entire quarter-acre backyard to get the radius right, it looked too straight. And the reason it looked too straight was when people photograph something like Ribblehead, they almost inevitably photograph it from the end.
Yes.
Or to get a perspective shot on a train or a locomotive. The camera naturally hooks the curve a little bit and makes it look more than it is. So I actually reduce the radius by a geographically significant amount so we're actually down to almost 2/3 of the real radius.
Wow.
And it then started to look right as a model of Ribblehead. That's the only compromise I made, though. It is the right number of arches, the right number of king piers, the right plumbing on it, shall we say. The downpipes are as they were when originally built, so you've got built out of X feet long sections of cast iron, all sorts of interesting little positive details.
And I suppose that's part of modelling in general, isn't it? Sometimes you have to make concessions for the real life counterpart for the model because it just doesn't look right in model form.
I think the issue is everyone gets really anal about tiny details. Now, I've always been amused by people that criticise the size of windscreen wipers when the wheels are too close together. It's a sort of tiny detail versus fundamental detail. The issue for me in a model is believability.
Yes.
It's not whether this is perfect or that is perfect. And I think the thing that makes a difference is when you look at this, can you go, this is that in model form, not this is a model of that.
Yes.
So you can look at it at a glance and go, wow, it takes me there.
Yeah.
Rather than, wow, look at the tiny details.
Yeah. It's almost like having somewhere to hang the hat of imagination, isn't it, I suppose, in a way?
It is indeed. And, you know, that's I think the difference between, for example, great competition models. There are many competent loco builders that can take a kit from any brand you want to mention and make a physically accurate assembly of that model, which has been based on a specific prototype on the drawings. However, there is a fundamental difference between doing that and drawing and making a model of that same locomotive as it was in mid-1947 or mid-1963, because almost every single locomotive or every single piece of rolling stock gains additional details while it is in service. So the difference between a nicely built model and a believable model is something that reflects the real in-life service. And that's what I try and do in my own modelling.
Yeah, you try to take that snapshot and bring it to life in your own little world.
So at a glance, it is the model rather than a model of the locomotive.
Yeah.
You know, I think there's a difference.
So that's, you know, a little bit about your modelling ethos and where it all began, certainly for the UK. But what about the rest of the world? You mentioned growing up in New Zealand, so you must have a favourite foreign setting, if you will, or foreign locomotive.
I do. I actually own a couple of New Zealand Railways kits I haven't yet built because life's too short to do everything you want.
I suppose so.
I have actively modelled, however, also US prototype. I've loved it. Yeah. At various times, initially Pennsylvania Railroad, because I love their Belpaire firebox locos, the huge tenders, and it was, if you like, the mainline fast passenger railroad of America at the time. The other one I love because of the scenery and because of the fact the prototype worked under adversity for most of its life is the Denver and Rio Grand Western.
The Rio Grande, yes.
Which tends to be built through really difficult mountain territory, which means there's nothing unusual about an average to large American train being towed by six to eight locomotives up quite steep gradients through spectacular gorges or through basically arid scenery or wild river and forest type stuff. So it just has a nice flavour of adversity and glamour about it.
And this really does roll back to the whole being inspired by a place you've never necessarily been to, but you can model it and you can bring it home.
Yeah, I haven't been at home for any of those railroads or railways, depending where you're listening from. But I have visited, since I started getting involved in them, I've made a point of visiting. And so I've visited a lot of the places that LMS ran through. I've visited a lot of places that give the legend to the railway.
So the modelling inspired the visit, not the other way around.
Exactly right. And the visit inspired an improvement in the modelling.
Yes.
And it's exactly the same in the States. Not so much with the Pennsylvania, because I'd stopped modelling that when I went to the States, but I visited Colorado and driven the length and breadth of it.
Sure.
Just to soak in the atmosphere of the place, because that's the starting point. I visited the museums, and it's interesting seeing more narrow gauge locomotives bigger than Duchesses. And you can guess what English loco I like from that. I guess I'm a great Duchess fan. Actually, Duchess and 8F, I think.
Guys, don't forget to like the video, share the video, and of course subscribe to the channel for more content like this. So, Richard, that's a bit about you and the origins of the company, but rolling back to a bit more about the company, what is it that really drives the development of a product? I mean, where does something like the IP digital point motor come from? Where does an idea like that even begin?
I guess the issue is at the root of what we do. We use a lot of technology, but actually the technology is totally irrelevant. What matters is what the thing does for the modeler, and that it's designed in such a way that they can open the box, connect it easily, and make it work reliably every time. How we achieve that is sort of not necessarily upfront relevant. A good example, Cobalt Digital. There are other motor drives out there, or were when we developed Cobalt and Cobalt Digital. Sure. But you had to do a lot of soldering to the circuit board.
Yep.
You had to fabricate a linkage because the wire they supplied wasn't quite strong enough.
No.
And you also needed it to be bulletproof, reliable, and easy to get on with. With Cobalt, the classic Cobalt blue motor, I think the comment that pleased me most of all from a review was from a certain Mike Wild at Hornby magazine, who said, "This is the easiest point motor I've ever installed. In 5 minutes, I open the box, install it, and I'm operating the motor with zero hassles every single time." That, to me, is a product that the customer gets. They look at it, they install it, and they smile. Even better, Cobalt, because we use the right materials in it, and to define that for you, we get to beyond 200,000 changes before the motor fails.
Huge number.
Most importantly, switches generally fail on anything. However, we count the cycles of the motor using our bit of electronics, but the count is only made and accepted via the switch that's on the motor. So we're actually not only testing the motor drive, we're testing the fact the switch still works perfectly.
Yes, of course.
If our tester senses 2 incomplete or intermittent changes, it cancels the test and says that's the end of the motor, whether the motor's working perfectly or not, because it's not good enough for half of it to work well, it all has to work well. And we achieve that by using hardened plating on the switch contacts, particular materials, and a lot of design tweaking over the last many, many years that this product has been available. It is now bulletproof, which is why it has a lifetime warranty. And we don't mean some artificial background thing. If I had bought a Cobalt, if it had been available when I was a 3-year-old modeler, it would still be under warranty for me.
Stitches in place and everything.
Exactly right. And actually, I can honestly say that if you buy a Cobalt motor, it will outlive you and will probably outlive your grandson or your son. So lifetime warranty for us means lifetime warranty.
You really do have to try hard to damage the Cobalt point motor. You really do. This is speaking from personal experience before I joined the DCC Concepts family. So you do sound quite proud of the Cobalt point motors, Richard. Would you say that's the product you're most proud of, or does something else take that crown?
Look, we make a diverse range of products.
Oh, yes.
And there are categories of little things I'm really proud of. Our station lamps. We're the first ever reasonably accurate station lamps. They're fine. They work. They're extendable using the same extendability that Midland built when they made them. They were made up of various cast iron parts stuck together. Ours are made up of parts you can stick together to make it taller or shorter if it's alongside a platform. I love the lamp range. I love our tool range because they're absolutely top of the line. And again, they're guaranteed against everything other than abuse. And abuse, by the way, isn't covered by warranty, just in case people are wondering. In fact, going back to that, my first ever Cobalt fault came back and there was actually a 1/8 drill hole in the top of the motor.
Good. Excellent. Yes. So, a good place to start, yes.
So warranty doesn't cover stupidity.
No.
Okay. Things I'm most proud of. I love to do things well. So I was building some single box levers. I wanted to make them work like real levers.
Yes.
And there were some fantastic kits available, which took about a week of frustration and sore fingers to build one lever. You know what? We've got to make this easier. So we built our Cobalt levers, and they are just gorgeous. The lever really is brass and metal. It feels like the real thing. You close the clamp like you do in a real box and push it over and it latches. And even better, we put 3 switches on each, a changeover switch ×2, plus a momentary switch. So actually, they will literally power any device, electronic or electromechanical, that is ever used on a model railway layout. So totally convenient, nice to use to the point I've got friends that are not hobbyists who have one on their desk at the office and they use it as a fiddle toy for when they're frustrated. They just sit there and change the lever, which I think is kind of cool.
Yeah, it is.
So I'm very proud of that. In electronics, probably the first reliable 100% high-end solenoid accessory decoder, which honestly just took away so many problems because it added things that were missing, like frog switching.
Yeah.
It added LEDs for your front panels. It worked every damn time because there was a CDU on every single output, not just one CDU on the whole thing. And it was cheaper than buying all the accessory switches and other stuff to add to a dumb solenoid. If you used it, now you've worked out the cost of 8 of this switch, 8 of that, 8 of this, looked at all the extra wiring, which was a huge amount, and the extra installer, that's all taken over and replaced by this one product, the AD decoder.
And you've also removed the soldering too, which for some people can be a nightmare to even comprehend.
I'm a solderer. I build locos, and I quite like solder. In fact, I like it more than glue because you can rework a solder joint if you're building a wagon. Try reworking a plastic joint. If you screw it up, it doesn't happen. So I'm a solderer. But, I guess that leads to one of the great joys in the hobby for me, and that's teaching people, because the one thing I see in modelers is they have something that is their witchbane or their curse, and soldering is often it. And they've been modelers for 50 years. And I do a soldering course and I'm ready to teach them to solder brass, nickel, silver, steel, make a kit, do this, solder white metal. And all they really want to do is have a nice, efficient way of soldering to a piece of wire to a piece of rail without feeling like it's a hair shirt project. And that is the biggest smile always on any course.
I can imagine why.
So I love teaching and sharing that knowledge, because every little curse you take away, whether it be weathering, whether it be scenery, whether it be building trees, whether it be soldering, whether it be making your own locos if you're getting into complex stuff, or wiring something, if you can make one of those things better for a modeler so it makes one more aspect they enjoy, I think we've succeeded.
I really must admit, when I first got back into the hobby properly, I didn't like soldering, and I didn't like it because I did what everyone that wants to try soldering for the first time does, which is you go to a supermarket, you buy an £8 iron, which isn't powerful enough, you don't buy a decent flux, and you don't buy a decent solder, and it just doesn't work. Yeah. But if you get those key components, like you said, actually, soldering can be very rewarding and almost cathartic in a way. And I no longer lament getting the soldering iron out. I do actually quite enjoy it. I'm not brave enough to make a brass kit yet, but I can certainly solder wires and point.
You probably are. I mean, most processes in the hobby are not complicated.
No.
And you asked me before, what's a product I might be most proud of? And I'll give you 2 that I'm very proud of that are tiny. One is our 179 solder.
Yes, absolutely.
It flows like water. It makes a perfect joint every time. It's very thin, and people wonder why it's so thin, but actually you don't need much solder. And if you have a thicker solder, you tend to put more on your iron tip and make more blobs on whatever you're soldering. And so that's nice because it's good to work with. But the other thing I'm very proud of is our flux. People are probably not aware, but most fluxes contain rosin. Rosin has a problem in that it gives off gases that are very bad for human lungs. So we developed a no-clean flux that contains no rosins and works like a dream, which means we can make people solder better without killing themselves.
It's good for us.
So I'm pretty proud of that.
Our customers survive longer to spend more money, which is always good, right?
Perfect.
So obviously you enjoy the soldering, you enjoy the kit making, you enjoy imparting your knowledge onto other modelers, but there must be something you dislike about this. There must be something that you think, oh, God, no, again, when it comes to modeling. There must be something.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, when I build a loco, I do everything. I build it, I modify it as necessary, and if you're ever building with white metal, you'll know that really has to happen sometimes, because sometimes it's just the wrong material to make things out of. I paint my models, I line my models, so I do everything.
Sure.
And then I do the final, and I do some basic weathering. I think the issue is it's the things that are my Achilles heel are things I haven't taken the time to understand. I can weather, but do I enjoy it? Not yet, because I haven't done enough of it. And, you know, if we look at the things that modelers resist, it's because they don't often want to break things that they've bought.
Understandable.
But let me give you a good example why that's not necessary. You want to paint using an airbrush. Okay, nothing to do with us as a business. But so, I don't want to damage my model by, it's like, hang on a second, look at your rubbish bin. In there are things like Coke cans. Now, if you can paint the side of a Coke can, you're painting a round surface. So you can paint a tank wagon or a loco boiler perfectly. You look at the top, it's got the pull ring, it's got the little ridges, it's got the odd shape. If you can paint that with a nice even coat without any paint runs, you can paint any detail on any locomotive. And even better, when you cock it up, as you probably will a couple of times,
absolutely.
all you do is throw that Coke can in the bin and start again. Alternately, the vacuum form packaging that a lot of things are in, there's lots of angles and things. Try painting one of those nicely. I see often people paint spoons, but they're dead easy. Paint something with ridges and lines and other things. Do that on half a dozen bits of rubbish. I actually did it at home on a crystal lamp base at one stage, which didn't make me very popular, but it was perfectly painted. So do stuff that doesn't hurt your models as you practice. When you're soldering, learn to solder on the offcuts that come round the brass fret. Don't solder on the bits you've got to put on your thing first. Test, get your mojo in place, and then touch the soldering iron to the thing you want to keep. With an airbrush, do the same thing. Paint everything around you, except your models, until you're confident, and then get onto the stuff. Most of all, stop looking at the internet for advice. Practice yourself. It doesn't matter what it is. Oh, how do I do this? And everyone will tell you the way they do it.
Yes, that's true.
But actually, that may not be the best way.
True.
If you ask people, which system should I buy? They'll all tell you the one they bought.
Yes, they will. Yes, absolutely.
And they'll say that's the best one. And they say that because they made the decision to buy it and they don't want to feel stupid.
But self-gratification, if you will.
Time travels on, brands change, actions change. And actually, the most important thing is figure out how you want to do something before you invest in the things that do it. For example, everyone goes about using a phone or using this or using that. But then again, they suddenly find they've bought the system, but they want the tactile feedback of buttons and knobs. Think before you get your wallet out, is my advice. If you wanted me to give one bit of advice, think. If you're not sure, come in and talk to us. We will not ask you to get your wallet out until we're sure you know what you're talking about. There's no point in paying the money till you're sure the use you're going to put the product to. One of the things I do know about modelers, and I'm just as guilty as everybody else, is, my God, that looks really good online. I'll buy it. And I get it there and I go, actually, that's almost what I wanted. I'll put it in the bottom drawer now and use it later. Yeah. And what I find is I run out of bottom drawers.
Yes.
And which means I've probably wasted several £100 or dollars or whatever you want to call your currency on things that are quite cool, but not quite what I wanted because I didn't stop and think. I do strongly suggest you come and see us or someone that is a true specialist to talk things through, because if they truly are a specialist, they will know the specs, but they won't talk about them. They'll tell you what the product can do for you and what it can't do for you. The specs don't matter. Don't listen to the bullshit. What matters is when you open the packet, the instructions are clear, you connect it, and it works, and you smile. It's that easy. And I'll give you a good example of that. We have told people for nearly 15 years now how easy it is to set the address on a Cobalt Digital.
Yes.
When we do a show, we show somebody up front and we get them to do it. They go, oh, it really is that easy, isn't it?
People
and
don't
the answer
believe
is, yes, it is. You shouldn't make expensive decisions till you can touch and prove, because nobody has an unlimited hobby budget.
I think that's an aspect to keep hold of within this hobby. I mean, there's a lot going on within the industry at the moment, and a lot of media outlets are saying that the hobby is dying or struggling or things are becoming really expensive. And just what are your general thoughts on the industry in general at the moment?
Okay, let me give you two thoughts. One is pricing. Effectively, prices will increase, and it's not the fault of the model makers or the model designers or anybody else. Think about the average locomotive. What's got more expensive? Copper has got more expensive. There is copper in the alloy that makes nickel silver. That makes your wheels. It also makes the tracks on your circuit boards and the wire. Plastic has got more expensive because of petrochemicals becoming a negative thing. There are less of things made. There is a move away from plastics get more expensive. Wages get more expensive. Do not believe that the Asian economies are cheap. Frankly, the industrial relations in China now gives you workers' compensation, superannuation, plenty of holidays. I think the Chinese have more holidays than the rest of the planet combined. And they have a very strong middle class that all have their 60-inch televisions and their BMWs, and you see more Volvos and BMWs and Audis in China than you'll see in Europe almost. What's happening is the costs that relate to doing things and living are getting higher worldwide.
Yes.
And I accept that many of our clients are on a relatively fixed income, on pensions or whatever, because it's an older demographic or they're coming to the end of their working life. But please compare pricing here with pricing in Europe. English trains are still nowhere near as expensive as European model trains.
They're really not.
And the pricing of the English stuff is getting better. Sorry, the quality of the English stuff is getting better.
It's coming along with
the detail is there, the robustness. Same sort of thing applies whether we talk about Australian modelling or Japanese modelling or American modelling. Quality and detail are improving. There is a cost to that. Things that were massively expensive 50 years ago, like tooling, are no longer as expensive because of computerized tool creation.
Of course, yes.
So there are costs coming down. But remember also, the brands must survive. They need to make a margin. And when everything, including now everything's got weird lighting, so there's an integrated circuit in every locomotive.
Absolutely.
Chips have got dearer. Don't underestimate the effect of price gouging on the chip market that happened during COVID because so many things with chips were being there. That price will never come down again. Things that go up will never come down. No. And value is based on what? You can't demand fine detail without demanding fine detail tooling or more extra individual parts on a loco. That adds to cost of manufacturing. It adds to assembly cost. It makes the packaging really expensive because it's got to carefully hold the model by the hard bits, so it doesn't break off the little bits when it's shipped. So everything, as you evolve your hobby and as you evolve the quality of the things you use in your hobby, it does add to the price. And if we're going to demand from manufacturers what we demand, we must accept the cost of our demands.
They come hand in hand. Really
exactly.
Do. You've come a long way from that 3-year-old boy with stitches in his cheek to the gentleman you are now, the leader of a very successful company, the forefront of the hobby. But if you could give 1 or 2 pieces of advice to a new modeler, no matter what their age is, they're coming into it too dear and they have absolutely nothing in their repertoire or experience, what 2 or 3 pieces of advice would you give them?
One is, by all means, listen to modelers who have been doing it a while, but don't simply slavishly follow what they do. Things evolve.
Yes.
And one of the great joys I've had over the last decade, new modelers do things that are brilliant. It could be scenery, it could be the way they approach a technical problem, it could be in the detailing of rolling stock. But by doing it their way, rather than the way people did it in the past. Because if you evolve what you do to take advantage of today's materials, you'll use different stuff to the guy that's been modeling for 50 years and got in the habit of using what he used back then. And your results are not going to be less than his. In fact, they may be infinitely superior, because I don't care how old the hobby is, a new head has new thoughts and that they should be allowed to flower. I totally hate the grumpy old men who hump and grump when people do things a way other than theirs. I think those guys should just carry on modeling and enjoy it, tell people how they do it, and not criticize when people don't follow their examples. Other advice is listen to other people. I wanted to make something that really looked like straw, and it wasn't me that came up with the coloring. It was my partner at the time who said use turmeric and tea to dye sisal string, and my God, it looks like straw. Okay. So listen to people and think outside the box.
Richard, thank you very much for taking the time to speak to me today. Boys and girls at home, thank you very much for watching. If you have enjoyed this video, please do leave us a like and a comment. We do read them all. And of course, subscribe to the channel. For me and Richard, we'll see you all again very soon.
Actually, a final comment. This is the first time Craig's actually listened to me for quite a long time. Cheers.